What's going on, guys? Thanks for clicking on the video. I really appreciate it. For those of you that are new here, my name is Toby. I'm 19 years of age and I'm on a mission to learn as much as I can about regenerative farming. And to do that, I am going to interview as many farmers as I can from around the world. And I invite you guys to come on this journey with me and to learn as much as we can about growing food in a way that is closest to how nature all around us works. So in this video, I'm interviewing Tom Kendall, who is a permaculture teacher that has spent close to a lifetime learning as much as he can about permaculture. So I encourage you to stick through till the end of the video and enjoy. It's going to be really good. Thanks for watching. Welcome back, guys. We're here at Perm Eco with Tom. Thanks for having us, Tom.
You're welcome.
Here on the beautiful Sunshine Coast. We picked a very lovely day to come out here. We're going to have a look around at some food forests, gardens, some syntropics, and if you don't know what those mean, keep watching. We'll explain them in nice, simple terms, but we're going to have a look around and hopefully you guys can learn a lot. Thanks for watching.
So we've been here 19 years and really haven't actually had a main game plan. I've just gone with the flow on the property. So we started off with a lot of volunteers and we're teaching a lot of PDCs, the Permaculture Design Certificate course, and it's evolved. So things have changed. Don't get as many students as we used to, and so we've evolved out of that. And evolution's a great thing because, well, that's natural, and I don't have any bad feelings about that. It's just where it's at. I've probably involved as spending my time with the people. And what I've needed to do is actually catch up a lot on the infrastructure of what I would like. I have not worked on my house, but I've worked on the gardens, and training people has been my main intention. So in hindsight, we got a small property. We're only really working with 10 acres, and that's not enough to actually create an income from, unless you specifically, of majority of that 10 acres was for a economies of scale approach to growing a product, selling a product, marketing a product, just like it's just bananas or just citrus or whatever like that, which doesn't really fit in with the natural systems because we need diversity. Mm-hmm. And I've gone more diversity. I've actually been quite pronounced on the diversity side of it. So I've got a little bit of lots of different things. And that's been good for education, good to show people stuff. It hasn't really given me much finance, yep. But we're still here, so that's fine. But it's given an opportunity for me to see, or anyone that wants to see it and can see it, is how the place has evolved. And Jeff Lawton hasn't been here for quite a while, but when I think it was his last visit that he came here, he could see a pronounced change because he's been here a few times over the 18 years, and he had a few comments on that. And so what's actually happened is nature's been able to function and do its thing. And so what I commonly say is create a space for nature to work. That's a hot compost is what you do. You bring all the ingredients into make an 18-day hot compost, and then nature can work because there's enough volume for the organisms to do what they need to do, so it heats up. Mm-hmm. And obviously we've got to get all the components right to get it to work, but we create a space for nature to work. And I think that's what's happened on this property. Of course that's what's happened on this property, is by allowing it to happen. So John Liu made a statement a few years back, and what does the planet need? But what is needed is biodiversity, biomass, and accumulated organic matter. And that's what I've done here, not necessarily by intention, I guess by intention, but that wasn't my overall drive. Mm-hmm. And that's what's occurred. So, the basic methodology of permaculture is chop and drop. One of the basic things that we do is chop and drop. So you leave all the organic matter there. So there's your accumulated organic matter. And then we do diversity, and diversity is critical. Each year goes by, I realise how valuable the diversity is, because that gives a chance for nature to work, because all the ecology comes with each diverse element that you bring into the system, and that's what we've done. You know, the property's challenging. We've got a lot of challenges on the property. It doesn't hold water very well. The shale base is doesn't, yeah, it's got little low clay content, so it's hard. So water's a bit of an issue. We've gotten by. And then the soil has been, the topsoil has been totally eroded away in previous mismanagement over whatever years, 50, 60, 100 years or whatever it's been. And then, yeah, so those practices were terrible, and all the topsoil's down in Lake Catharaba. So we've been, with that accumulated organic matter and the diversity and our animal systems. Our animal systems is what is our main driver on the fertility, and so we've focused a lot on that. So it takes a fair bit of effort with the animals. So we're out first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. We spend about an hour and a half every morning getting animals sorted. And that is the driver behind, you know, we're just doing the basic animal stuff, you know, put them out, feed them, bring their food to them, yep, and whatever. But that's the main fertility drive. So their fertility is what makes the system happen. And then that's when you start looking into the regenerative agriculture side. So you know, a bit of holistic management direction on the cattle. I move the cattle every day, so they get fresh pasture every day. And in the system, they only be on a piece of land 6 days of the year. And however, they're only actually on that land for 9 hours of a day. And it is improving, slowly improving, because we steal the manure. We keep the manure because they're penned at night, and we keep the manure, and that's drives the methane gas biodigester, which we cook our food on. And then we have the outflow from that, which becomes part of our main compost system. And then we have the chickens doing their thing, and we've got the goats doing their thing. And so yeah, that's the drive behind it. The property is fertility, biodiversity, and the animal systems that make it. And so slowly, probably quicker than slow, but slowly the fertility's building, and we're allowing nature to do its thing in more ways than one. This year we've gotten quite involved into doing a fair bit of a reset. We haven't done much resetting of a lot of the trees, you know, pruning of the fruit trees and stuff, but also the support species have had a big haircut. So and it's been great to get back into it. For a couple of years there, we let them express, which is great, let them express, and then now we get into them, give them a reset, you know, the term from the syntropic, and then we're getting all that accumulated organic matter, and that's where we're putting all that back. Bit of chop and drop, but a lot of chipping going on, and that's diverse material, so it's gold, that stuff, it's good. So yeah, that's the main component behind it. So let's have a wander around, and I can point out a few of those things for you. But one thing I've got to do is we've got to go to I call it the BDCC, so it's the outflow from the biodigester. I'm a bit behind schedule on that, so I'm going to shovel that, and you can watch me do that. So.
Sounds great. Let's have a walk around.
Just mention with the BDCC, this is the goat system. So we've got some young goats here. These guys, they're important part of the system. I don't get a lot of return from these guys because I eat a bit of goat, but I don't have enough goat, and they don't grow out fast enough for me to have a lot of goat in the freezer. But you can see in the, might be called a manger, is that's actually ochna. That's a weed plant. You know, it's an introduced species. That's a lot of it in the bush here. It's not easy to manage, and so twice a week we feed this forage of the ochna, and so in a way they're maintaining the property, but it's cut and carry sort of terminology some people use. We bring that in. So these guys only get into the field for 5 hours of the day, so they spend most of their life in this yard. We bring in they basically get 2 breakfasts. So they have a feed with some minerals and stuff that we put together and tidy up a bit of the garden material. It's all that diversity thing again, a different feed each day. You don't give them the same feed 3 days in a row because they won't want to eat it. But you give it 3 days, 2 or 3 days, 3 days apart, and they will eat it. And so they need that constant mineral supply, but in stages, sort of thing. So that we get to maintain this weed in the bush. This stuff grows well in the bush, which is annoying.
Yep.
Usually your lantanas and stuff, once the bush establishes, they move out. Well, this actually thrives in the bush, so it's a bit of a challenging one.
So it's a win-win. So you get to feed them weeds that grow everywhere, and
Yep.
then they get to eat it.
They get to eat it, and it's maintaining. You can see they're a little bit down in condition because we are in non-flush part of the year. They're a little bit down. And so that's the black one there. She's a mum, so she's down a bit. Rightio, so if you have a look around here, you see this big pile of materials here.
Yep.
This is the waste from each day. So each day we bring in some forage for them.
Right.
And there's about 5 different species that we feed them. One of the main ones is ice cream bean. Ice cream bean grows very, very well here. And so it's a high nitrogen, it's my main nitrogen natural plant to bring in the nitrogen system. And then the ones that are really stripped out, so they just strip the bark off them. They really like the ice cream bean. And so twice a week they get ice cream bean, and then there's ochre and there's bamboo on another day, etc., etc. So it's about 5 species that we do. And that changed in a year. So when we got a flush after mulberry harvest season, then the mulberries need to be pruned. And so then we bring in that, and then so they love mulberry, but we only get it for a period of time because it's a deciduous plant. So then we have to go to find something else in that off season from the mulberry. And it's continued that diversity, and so then this material ends up at the biodigester system into the BDCC, which is another part of it. So this is how the goats actually build my soil with diversity, because we manage the property each day.
Right.
And so it's a really good strategy. It means we need to be hands-on.
Yep.
So there's basically 3 of us running the basics of the system at the moment, and one person can do it, but I wouldn't get to have breakfast until 11 o'clock each day, maybe 11:30, so because of that. But the system is slowly, continually building. And I get to eat goat chops.
Does it taste pretty good?
Yeah,
Never
of course.
had goat.
Yeah. It's a tougher meat, but that doesn't bother me.
Yep.
You can process it more, but I'm pretty quick on the process. I just chuck a chop in the fry pan. That's sort of my deal.
Yep.
And then so because they're coming in, so they go out into the pastures, which we're doing in a holistic style each day, and then they're pooping in here. So then we get to harvest this manure in here about once every 3 months or whatever. We come in and harvest the manure.
Yep.
That gets stockpiled, and whenever you're making up a garden bed, you use the BDCC or the goat manure, or plus the goat manure, plus the chicken manure, because the chickens are doing the same thing. That we clean out their pens every couple of months.
Yep.
And then stockpile that, let it decompose down, and then we mix them together. And we do have raw cow manure just on its own. We get a wheelbarrow a week of that, and we put that in the pile, let that age, and then we mix that in. So there's our diverse compost that we put on our garden beds.
Right.
So they are valuable in the system, even though I only get to eat a little bit of goat chop. They are, as Bill calls it, a biological resource in the system, not just for having some pet goats around. We actually get work done because of them, or fertility build because of them.
It seems like with the whole permaculture system, it's about crossing over the uses so that you don't just get one use out of something.
It's
multiple.
the multifunction of your elements.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to recognise that, and then set up your system so that it works. And this system's been going for ages, and yeah, it works hands-on. But when you're a farmer, you're meant to be hands-on. That's what it's about.
Of course.
Yeah. So with the grazing, I've got 6 paddocks. It's supposed to be 7, but I've still got a bit of fencing to do. You might be able to see. You can see several different stages of grass growth. There's 4 different stages of grass growth on that slope over there. Well, that's well, 3 of them are the goat paddocks, and then there's the 3 behind me here, sort of thing. So they get 8 days in a. So at the moment they're in cell 1 here, and they get 8 days in there.
Yep.
And then we take them out and put them into the next cell in order, and then that means because there's 6 cells. When they're in a cell, that means there's 5 cells with no animal in them, and that gives it 40 days of rest. So that's a holistic management. It's all about the rest, so the root system can re-establish, so that you get that ecology happening,
Right.
and pushing that liquid carbon into the soil, because the new roots going down each time that you reset it. And
so it seems like a decent chunk of the year the grass is just sitting there with nothing in it. It's just doing its thing, right?
overgrazing is the technical term for overgrazing, is when a plant gets eaten before it can rebuild its root system.
Right.
And so set stocking, the select plants that they really like to eat are being overgrazed, and then the rougher ones that they don't like to eat are going stagnant. And so they'll be oxidizing off into the air, and you're not getting very much. According to Christine Jones, and others, of course, the soil scientists that are switched on, that to get true carbon, liquid carbon into the soil is through active root growth with mycorrhizal fungi. And so when you're pushing that new roots, every time they get grazed off, so this is getting grazed down now, so it's basically a reset. I'd like it to be less than 8 days, but how my system works is only working on 8 days. When I get the next paddock in place, it'll be 7 days and then 42 days of rest. I just need to get that one more paddock in, and that's going to be a bit more ideal. And then, so when it goes back into the flush, it's putting, root systems will be dying in there, so that's putting organic carbon into the ground. But when the new roots grow with mycorrhizal fungi, that's when your liquid carbon, in a balanced system, so in a more of a natural system, 20% from what I understand of the carbohydrates coming out of the air by photosynthesis is pushing carbon. 20% will go into the soil. When you're doing conventional and you're putting in synthetic fertilizers, that doesn't happen.
Right.
It just shuts down. And so that's why your soil depletes in those systems. So slowly, my pastures are building, and you've got to remember, if they're in the field only for 5 hours of the day, most of the manure is ending up here. So I'm actually raping and pillaging nutrient from the fields and putting it here so that I can build my garden beds. So that's higher priorities to build my garden beds. So if my pastures are improving, even though I'm doing that, well, we're still onto it, sort of, it's okay. If my pastures were depleting, then I've got to change the system. So.
Right.
Right, so we're in the cow yard. So the cows come in here every evening. We need to milk twice a day. Only milking one at the moment, twice a day. So they come in, and then we leave them in because I need that cow manure, because I've got a methane gas biodigester. So the 2 white buckets, we need 1.5 of them. That's about 30 kilos of cow manure. And then the dirty material, we have to have clean material to put in the biodigester. Only organic matter can go into the biodigester. And so hence the concrete everywhere. And then any dirty material or excess material ends up in the wheelbarrow, and that's where I take it over and leave it in the compost area as just straight cow manure. Once the worms go through, it becomes a beautiful black, yummy material that we mix in when we're making potting mix up or whatever we're doing with that. Okay, so then I'll bring the buckets over here, or Chris does.
Yep. So how many buckets of manure do you go through a day to feed the...
It's 1.5. 1.5 buckets, 30 kilos.
Right.
So you need to mix the cow manure with water, so then the methanogens have more access to it, and I actually mix it up more. So we're paying up a potato masher here that we mix it in the white buckets. We mix it up and make it into a nice slurry and tip it into here, give it another stir, pull the plug, and it goes down into the biodigester here. And then nature just goes to work. So another time that I've just put together a space for nature to work. And I didn't have to go and buy the organisms or anything like that. It does it automatically on its own. Nature just has those nature's amazing.
Yeah.
Just has those organisms there waiting for that moment. When would that happen in natural systems? So if you had a flood event and then you got a fence line or whole heap of bamboo trees or something like that, and a whole heap of material got pushed up against that and deposited in that flood event, the water went off, and you got a dead sheep in there and all this grass and branches and sticks, it's going to heat up and do its thing. That's nature at work, So this is a bit different. This is anaerobic. So when you have a pond of all that sludge going into, nature turns it in. It smells. It's anaerobic. So in here is an anaerobic digestion system.
Yeah.
And so it smells. It would smell in here. But interestingly, by the time material comes out, it doesn't smell. It's actually really quite one day I've got to get in there and clean that out, because if we slowly each day we'd be putting in a little bit of dirt and it'd be needing to be cleaned out. I'm going to be really keen to smell what's in there,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make sense to me that it doesn't smell on the other side.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a tank in here, and then gas comes into the top of the dome.
Yep.
This isn't the dome's further down, and that's your gas. That's your gas there. So this pipe goes to the kitchen.
Wow.
And then we cook our breakfast and cups of tea inside.
So your home is 100% gas powered from cow manure.
I won't say 100%, because in winter, this is running a bit cold. Methanogens need to run at 37 degrees temperature. That's the optimum temp.
Yep.
And it's probably, because we're actually having a bit of a long, colder, extended winter this winter. I'm feeling it.
Yep.
Hence the jacket and before I had the beanie on. It's been down about 7. I haven't measured it for a while, but in winter it can get down to 17 degrees. So the methanogens slow right down. The ecology really slows down. So we have rocket stoves as our backup. So we like the rocket stoves. We've got plenty of organic matter here, a few gum trees, which are the best ones for it.
Yep.
And we light the rocket stove to cook on,
Yep.
so that I'm not using bottled gas.
Yep.
So be part of the solution, not the problem.
And do you think this is something that everyone with, you know, even a small amount of land can implement, or is it a pretty intensive system?
So you hear these home biogas scenarios. I've got some friends that are actually putting one in, and that'll just be their toilet. I'm really interested to see how much energy they get from that, because I'm putting in 30 kilos here,
Yep.
and there's a fair bit of human manure to make 30 kilos up
Yep.
to run a kitchen. So I don't know if this is an inefficient one, but then I do know that I need to put a heater on it, and
Yep.
that I've been saying that this has been in here for 8 years or something like that now, and I've been saying that ever since I built it. I should have
Yep.
done it there and then.
Just
But I
putting it
found
off.
a
Yep.
second-hand solar hot water system that I'm going to put onto that, and I know what's going to happen is it's going to have to happen, because it'll eventually block up with too much dirt in there.
Right.
When I clean it out, that's when I'll put in the heater. So
Right.
yeah, so it's on another one on the agenda to do.
So this is something that a lot of people could do if they had the
Yeah.
knowledge.
Every household in Australia used to be on a septic, which is an anaerobic biodigester,
Yep.
and there's a pipe that comes off that and lets the methane gas go off into the air. Every one of them that could have been piping. If it was just a little bit of adaptation, every one of them you could have been cooking on that gas for however long a septic toilet's been invented for.
So it's wasted gas.
It's absolutely wasted gas, methane going off into the air. And I don't know how much it would have produced, but it would have been an amount. That's just going to... So this is the slurry comes out here and a channel down into there, and then we wheelbarrow it, and it ends up in the BDCC. So
Yep.
that's Monday's job.
And that would be very good for the garden, I'm guessing, just full of nitrogen and...
Yeah, the nitrogen content should
Microbes.
still be there. We'll lose a little bit of the nitrogen content in its processing over there, because you've got your carbon and nitrogen scenario happening. Methane's CH4, so carbon and hydrogen. So I don't know, I haven't found any information on how much nitrogen's in it. It should still be all there, because it's only CH4, and a bit of carbon dioxide as well. So the nitrogen should still be there. You can still see it's green.
Yep.
So yeah, it should be there. So, but we added this wood chip to it when we take it over to the BDCC. So then you're adding carbon again. So then you're going to have that breakdown nitrogen carbon nitrogen ratio sort of
Yep.
scenario going on there. And so yeah, I don't know, but it's still going to be in that. It's still going to have that nutrient.
Yep.
It is a bit boring, because if my cow diet is boring, and I've got a bit of a monoculture happening of one grass species, and so that's a little bit boring. Hence we add in the other chook manure and the aged chook manure and the aged goat manure to try and balance it up a
Right.
bit. Yeah.
And I was going to ask this before, with the compost, I've seen a lot of, you know, advice out there on how much carbon to nitrogen ratio there should be, and it seems to get pretty complicated. Do you think that is it meant to be simple? Like, is it 50-50 nitrogen to carbon, or do you sort of look at it and go, I think that needs more carbon, I think it needs more nitrogen?
So the carbon and nitrogen ratio is around the 25-1, and that's what you need for a biodigester as well. Interesting.
Yep.
Patterns, you know, we're all about patterns, and interesting that it's 25-1 as well as for your hot compost. It's not that critical, but because, you know, it's going to take a while, but that's decomposing. It is using the nitrogen out of the air. So it depends on how fast you want it to happen. You want it to happen for the 18-day hot compost. That's 18 days. You can put that stuff straight in your garden. So the parameters are tightened up. So it's a 25 to 1, 25-30 to 1 around that ratio, and you need to get a comprehension of the ingredients you're putting in. So it's the Berkeley method 18-day hot compost. That's the fastest one I'm aware of, to get a cubic metre of material ready to put in the garden in 18 days. But just a leaf laying under a tree is decomposing, is using the nitrogen from the air to do that. So it's not that complicated. It depends on what you need, and so it also depends on your resources. So what you have. So if you have horses, it's going to take longer to decompose, and it's going to be higher carbon content. So you need more nitrogen to add to that. And so what do you put into your system? So as an example, well, I would only feed the goats nitrogen plants, and then all that nitrogen chip goes into that. So it's a higher nitrogen content. And so then if I'm targeting to do horse manure, so you change, we grow, or we bring in our resource. Hence, I've got goats and cows. I want to bring in ducks. I want to bring in. I'm not sure about pigs. Excuse me. Not sure about pigs, but there's another element that you can have bats. You can have whatever you want to do that. Quail, guinea pigs, whatever you want. What works for you, because you are a major element. You're the major element in your system. So what works for you?
Right.
Yeah, and I like working with cows. I'm a sheep farmer originally. I'd like to work with sheep. This isn't really sheep country. But one day, once I get more of my goat, I'm actually going to expand the goat system out more and try and run some sheep. I've got a balance of my goat. I didn't have enough space for the goats for the turnover. Now I've got enough space for the goats for the turnover. There's, it'll be about, I'm going to guess now, 1,500 square metres, or a bit over 1,500 square metres, maybe near 2,000 square metres to run 8 goats, or they're young ones as well in there. So, but then if I can expand that out, then I can run a few sheep in there as well. So,
right.
Yeah, and maybe drop off a bit of goat. But it's a reproductivity. So actually I'm going to have too many goats pretty soon, because I've got 3 mated just now. So then, boom, I'm going to have an explosion of goats.
Right.
But I'll have to eat more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so just to balance that down. Whereas you have not enough, then it's a challenge, So, and we don't buy in and sell sort of scenario. So.
Yep.
So back to the composting thing. It's actually very simple, but it can be complex in your approach to it. So how you approach that. So yeah. Permaculture is design. And it's designed around your elements, and there needs to be strategies in that for your elements to work.
Right.
Otherwise, you're working for the elements. You're working, to get it to happen. Whereas in your design, hopefully they're working for you. We're involved, but it's not a terrible lifestyle.
Yep.
You're out in the you're out in the beautiful air, and how many times you hear that? Oh, you need to get outside and get a bit more sunshine, a bit more fresh air, and out into nature. Well, you build nature around you, then
takes care of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is good, because time can be limited.
Yeah, of course.
Main kitchen garden. I've got a big garden, and because we had a lot of more volunteers, and always had the intention that there's always going to be more than just a couple living on this space. Why in our culture do we have large areas for 2 people? and if you went into an Asian culture, there's enough space here for probably 5 or 6 families, if not more. So I've had a big garden, and it's been I haven't done much work in the garden of late, the last couple of years, so we've been back into revamping it. I've got a young fella here volunteering and getting quite into it. He's pretty passionate about learning about it, so we've revamped it quite a bit, and it's looking okay. So this is we did have quite a bit in autumn. We have a lot of bug issues, but the cold winter, that pushes them out. But these are looking all right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just from our compost system. So I haven't bought anything in for that.
It's amazing.
And so it's ticking away. Now this is why did I select this property? Well, this is north facing. We're just coming out of winter, so we're at the end of July, and we're just coming out of winter here in the southern hemisphere, and that's my winter sun coming in. So that's why I've chose this property. It's got that northern aspect. So you see this rock wall here is getting full sun in the winter.
Yep.
And that's going to radiate that heat out during the night, because that'll be absorbing. They'll get warm during the day, that'll be absorbing that heat, and then it'll radiate it back during the night, so it'll keep it warmer in here. And then when we get into our summer sun, which is coming higher, we're 3 degrees short of vertical here, because we're 26 degrees latitude. So the sun will come over the top here, and if you're clever and grow more of this stuff over the edge of the rock, it'll be in the shade and it'll actually keep the garden space cooler.
Right.
And so it's having that ideal aspect.
Yep.
Rather than facing west, and then it all just doesn't work. So that's why I did choose this property.
Yep. And what's the benefit of having the trees in the garden? I've noticed there's a few of these.
Okay, so this is a Lucina laococephala, and it's a nitrogen fixer. And I have noticed in the time I've been here that we've been getting hotter. Even though my soil is improving, my plants have been struggling more and more in the summer. And so I said, okay, I need a shade. Now you can go and put up a shade cloth, poles and posts, and go all, send the trucks to the warehouses and get all that sort of stuff. Or we could do it naturally. And so I'm doing a bit of experimentation on what trees I can use to shade the garden in the summertime, or it's actually the spring is our worst period of time. We get a lot of sun in the spring, and because it's subtropic, so that's when you have your dry, when everything wants to take off. Right. It's actually dry period of time. I know, okay, we can irrigate it, but sometimes I get run a bit short of water. But also we're still getting nailed, and so I'm going for legumes, because legumes are bringing in the nitrogen, so I want that aspect of it. So it's a nitrogen fixer, and I'm not going to put a poinciana in here because poinciana is very vigorous, shallow, poking out of the ground root system. You're not going to be able to garden under a poinciana. Poinciana's got a beautiful form. I love that form, that beautiful umbrella form, perfect, but not going to be ideal to garden. And so we're trialling the Lucina. The Lucina doesn't grow very well here, not like the ice cream bean. If I put an ice cream bean here, it's just going to take over. It's just going to go very, very vigorous. So I'm not going to use that either, because I need to garden and I don't want to spend all my time pruning.
Yep.
I actually could do with more of these because they don't actually put out a lot of foliage. This one's, 7 years old or something or other now, and it's had a nice haircut. It's coming in, so as we get into spring, this will get more and more out. This one here, this is a Gliricidia, and I'm trialling that. I don't know how it's really going to go. It can get really big. My challenge with this is actually putting out growth at the top, but it keeps wanting to put out growth down low.
Right.
And so it's a little bit more hands-on. You can see the growth's really on the top of the Lucina, but this one here is a bit different. But I'm trialling the Gliricidia sepium. It's it can be firewood. I haven't found that so successful. It can be cow forage, goat forage, nitrogen fixer, and this is when I visited a couple of so Fiji, Vanuatu, Dominican Republic.
Yep.
They grow a lot of this, and it's living fence. And so one day would I start doing living fences instead of buying metal fence,
Yep.
which is fossil fuel derived and all that. So I'm learning a bit about that as well.
Right.
That's a Tipuana tipu just there. It's
wow.
it's going to be way too big for the system. I really shouldn't
Yeah.
have that there. It's just, but now we've got a pole saw. It makes life a little bit easier.
Yep.
to cut that back more regularly, but it'll get massive. And it's got a little bit of shallow root system, so I really shouldn't have that there, but
Yep.
I thought I'd throw them in. And then when we turn
these
around,
are pretty much free mulch, right? Like you can cut the branches off and put them on the garden.
yep, and chip it.
Chip it, yep.
Chip it. This has all been chipped here. So these got chipped and put it back, so we're keeping that nitrogen here. And then we got the Mexican tree ferns, the two big Mexican tree ferns.
Oh
there.
wow, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a nice high shade. So going to be, as the sun goes over, there's a period of time of shade. I really like them. They drop all the leaf material, the tiny little leaves, the sticks, the twigs, the branches, and these drop all pretty much nearly all the time. But these are really, really good for lighting the rocket stove. Even though that one's a bit green,
Yep.
it'll burn. It's got a sap or something or other in it, oil or sap that actually burns. Even though it's a bit green, that will light my rocket stove. So I harvest these for the rocket stoves.
Yep.
Quite regular, and it's starting material.
Yep.
Great resource. I know it's a nitrogen that I'm burning,
Yep.
but I don't really want to grow more eucalypts here. I actually want eucalypts. Where you see eucalypts as drier landscape, I want wetter landscape. I have trouble holding moisture in my soil because of the slope, because of the shale and the low clay content. So if I grow more eucalypts, I'm actually going to dry it out more. And so that's going the opposite direction. This is actually meant to be rainforest area, and so I'm still looking for plants that I can use. The Leucaena's no good, the Gliricidia's no good as rocket stove fuel. I've trialled them. You possibly could. Eucalyptus is the best. It's fantastic, but I'm still looking. So at this stage, I'm using this. Maybe I will plant a few eucalypts sporadically and use them as my fuel, and we are using them as our fuel most of the time. We use windfall at the moment most of the time on the rocket stoves, but we don't quite have enough windfall to keep them going. So I probably should plant a couple more of them, but I've got to be really thinking about that because I don't want to dehydrate my landscape. I want to hydrate it.
And eucalyptus is also allelopathic, right? So it stops.
Well,
the
it's
growth
interesting because they'll use the eucalyptus in the syntropics.
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's a biological resource, and the only way biological resources work is with timing and management. And syntropics is all about management, definitely about timing and management. And so you are going to manage them. Mind you, you'll see that I haven't managed my syntropics.
Yeah.
So the eucalypts have gotten a bit out of hand.
But
yeah, that, you know, so you, again, we're trying to grow our resources instead of fossil fueling them in. You know, that's what we need to do. And on this 10 acres, we do, you know, most of it by hand. A little bit, you know, we'll use the vehicle a little bit, and we use chainsaws and stuff, of course. But it's not as though we're trucking it miles and miles away, and and creating more problems.
So one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, why isn't every backyard garden doing something like this? Like, you know, with the chop and drop trees we were looking at before, the Leucaena, it seems like that's something that every gardener could do to stop buying mulch, to increase shade, hold more moisture in the soil from evaporation. So why isn't everyone doing this?
Okay, really, it is a good question, and it's about resource accessibility. So it's much easier to go and buy it. And that's where we've gotten to, you know, for a couple of generations now. I'm of the older generation.
Yep.
How do I say this? So I grew up on a farm in marginal country, and so we had not a lot of money, and so we were very resourceful. You know, so we didn't squander the resources we had, and so that's in my adaptability of, you know, how I adapted to function. And so I recognise those resources and I see the value in it, and I don't know, I actually like living that way. And now your question is, why isn't it in every backyard? People can't be bothered anymore. It used to be in every backyard, pretty much. People lived out of their backyards a lot. Nowadays, that's not cool. You go to the supermarket.
Right.
And don't realise you're spending so much of your life having a job so you can go to the supermarket.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think people have lost touch with the food?
It's a culture it's been put forward. You know, there used to be a culture around your local grocery store. Well, that's gone now to big supermarkets. Right. So it's the convenience of going to big supermarkets because everything's there. Whereas you had the local village culture, you had to go out of one shop to get your out of the butcher shop and then go into the bakery shop, and then you had to go the street into the next shop, and then, you know, it might be raining or whatever. Oh, that's all a bit inconvenient. Where you can just go to the supermarket, the big mall, and it's all in one. But you don't realise that you're not talking to the butcher anymore, and you're not talking to the baker anymore, and so there goes your community. And we've been basically duped into losing our community. And when you go into the big shopping centres, well then the profit they make doesn't come back into the community, whereas the baker and the butcher, your profit comes back into the community because they spend that money that they make in the community. They live in the community, so they spend in the community. And so we're having less and less communities around the world because of the fact of the big shopping centres, you know, and the big malls, etc. And so you're losing your culture, you're losing your village feel. And the only way we really do it now is farmers markets, and everyone loves a farmers market. Well, that's what every village was one time, was a farmers market. You know, that's the crazy thing. You know, great Sunday come, we go to the farmers market, and every day you could have been going to the farmers market if you stayed in that village culture. So,
right.
Yeah. So you know, people don't like getting their hands dirty, and they don't really want to get up and milk a cow every morning. And you don't have to. One person in your village can milk the cows, and one person can be the baker. You know, so you did have that. But
so it's all about that village mentality. So doing things together, not you know, taking on big tasks, like you were saying, like buying a big property and doing it all on your own, doing things
It's economies of scale. The economies of scale is what destroyed your villages. You know, so everyone had some bananas in their backyard, or had a bit extra, and they'd send them off to wherever, you know, or the dairy. And several people had 5 or 8 cows or whatever, and everyone had 5 or 8 cows. And there used to be a butter factory in the middle of town here, in the middle.
Right.
And then once the trucks came in and you could bulk it all up, and it actually went to bulk milk, well, there goes your butter factory, because it's going to go somewhere else, and there goes your community, and there's no jobs in town, and
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. It's economies of scale, where we were better off when we all had 8 cows and whatever, instead of, you know, there's less and less dairies around here now with their 250 cows, and they can't make a profit. And yet, you know, what, 50 years ago, 60, I don't know exactly, 80 years ago, people lived on a property of 10 acres, 5 acres, whatever, had a couple of cows, put their kids through school. Only one person, you know, they lived off the farm on 8 cows, and now you have 250 cows and you go broke.
Yeah.
The economies of scale screwed it. It's just
Right.
So how do we regulate economies of scale? That's a good question. So
Right.
yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, but you're complaining that there's no one in the town anymore. Well, you just bought half the properties up. What do you expect?
Right.
Yeah, economies of scale. You know, I don't know if greed's involved with that or whatever. Anyhow, we're in the food forest, and it's not a real productive food forest because I still got pretty poor soil. This used to be creek here. It's quite stony, this soil, but we've just been doing a lot of the accumulated organic matter. We've got the support species, and then any sticks and branches we just put in here. So if you went through a forest, you would hear that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do.
It's a natural sound.
Yeah, and then that's, you know, your saprophytic fungi are busy at work breaking these down. So that's your, you know, bit of the ecology, and hopefully the mycorrhizal fungi is doing their thing in there. We've got a few nitrogen fixes in here, and so that's bringing in some of the nitrogen. There would be nitrogen ecology occurring, of course. And then of late, we've allowed the coffee bushes. Oh, I missed a couple yesterday. It was getting dark when I did the harvest, so a couple of coffee beans that I missed.
Yep.
So there's your understory coffee coming through.
Yep.
And I've still got to process them obviously a bit more, but sort of allow ourselves to have our coffee once a week. I don't drink coffee. Usually it's only once or twice a week I have coffee, but we don't have it every day because it takes too much to process. If people process their own coffee, they wouldn't drink so much coffee. That's a big process, but I enjoy it, and blessed be it. I just grabbed some seedlings under a friend's coffee tree one day, and then it's actually nice coffee. So it could have been crap.
Yep.
We're a bit lucky.
And one of the first things I noticed coming in here is like how cool it is.
Oh yeah.
And there's no wind. Like I could probably work in here all day if I had to, compared to, you know, a commercial farm. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
It's a little bit too thick. I do need to come in. I put in more fruit trees than normally will be done, and that's because it's not based about productivity. It's based about building the soil, because the soil was really poor in here, very badly eroded scenario. All the topsoil just disappeared, but it's getting a lot better, and because of this way I've been managing it, I do need to take some out. So there's a olive tree here. I need to cut it right back and then use it as a carbon source, because even if we do harvest olives, we don't eat them. You know, we don't really get into I do like the odd olive. We used to eat a lot of olives, but I don't anymore. So we process some, put them on the shelf. They're probably still on the shelf. So don't bother with all that effort, but use that as a carbon plant. So there's diversity in the system. When I say carbon plant, just bring in more of this material.
Yep.
And then that'll open up some space so that the mulberry can do its thing.
Yep.
Just take a few out. You know, there's just a bit too much in here, and that's okay. You know, that's just thinning it out a bit, and then we get the productivity up with the other ones. Obviously, my bananas they're productive. I can make a couple of dollars out of the bananas, so it's quite convenient.
Yep.
And I'm trying to get the ground covers to come in. So this is a natural grass that's starting to come in. all by itself. It got a bit overexposed because we lost a heap of bananas here to a lightning strike. And now that they're coming back, then this grass it just let a little bit too much light in and it got a bit messy.
So what are your main inputs into the food forest? Obviously you've got the chop and drop, so leaving all the wood on the ground. And do you add compost from the cows?
This material here, this is actually human manure. This is from our toilets.
Oh, human manure.
Yeah, that's human manure. So we don't have any flushing toilets on property.
Wow.
So this is human manure. So there's the human manure bank over here. We can have a quick look at that.
Yep.
We'll walk up. I get some waste from an insect farm. I did spread a bit of that around lately. But it's more actually about the design of the property. So this swale here, it actually goes into our valley, and then when we have a lot of rain, water flows through from the cow yards and the chook yards and the whole property, and then comes down here, spills around here. This is the spillway, and then flows down through there, and that's bringing nutrient from the whole property.
Right.
So that's part of the design. It's a big part of the design.
Yep. Yeah. So are you saying that it can be really beneficial to have livestock at the top of the property so that when you do get rain, all that runoff comes down to the bottom and you get that nutrient sediment at the bottom?
Yep. It's not a clever design to have your animal, with your penned animals, where there's accumulating lots of material at the bottom of your property, because it's just going to bleed out of your property. You want to bleed into your property, so put your animal systems high. I don't even have mine high enough. And if I'm getting forage from up in the hill and bringing it down to my cows, I'm actually accelerating the movement of that nutrient down off the property. Gravity moves it down through water.
Yeah.
So water is a major mover of nutrients. So in permaculture, always got to you spread your water and capture it and spread it as high as you can and spread it. But water is a major mover of nutrient. So if you're managing the water and how you manage the water, you can manage your nutrient flow, and that's what this is doing. Instead of this water running straight on the road, which it did for 3 weeks, each big event would run on the road for 3 weeks. Now it comes around here, comes over this longer path, slowed down, dropping nutrient off as it comes because it's slowed down, around here, meandering through there, filtering through all that system in there, and only runs on the road for 6 hours.
Wow.
Instead of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so then, obviously the water's going down through the rock and whatever, that's because this used to be creek, so there's a fair bit of stone and stuff in here. But it should be leaving the majority of the nutrient here as it's doing it. And so, really, really important part of your design is your water management, because it moves so I'm bringing that nutrient all across to here. I couldn't get it across to the garden because of the infrastructure in the way, but I've got it to the food forest. So this is our human manure bank here.
Wow.
So our compost toilets get deposited into here. And this one's
smell, surprisingly.
Well, you got your carbon, you add sawdust with it when you do your do's, and then this is going into the food forest. I don't take this to the garden in case there is still some pathogens here. This is the human manure handbook methodology. They've done the science on it, and so we leave it at least a year. And then your pathogens are sorted out mostly, and then we just put in the food forest around fruit trees or the bananas and stuff like that. I don't put in the garden because if there was pathogens and then your leafy green touched the pathogen, touched the product, then there's a chance of you picking up the pathogen. But in the food forest, it's got to go through a whole biological resource to get into the fruit, and as long as the banana doesn't land on it or something like that, then you should be fine.
Right.
So it's just removing that chance of pathogens.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm in the syntropic section here. I won't go into a lot of detail on the syntropic because there's plenty of places you can do that. But for me, it's quite amazing. I put in a bit of a system because people were talking about it. I did a couple of courses and got a bit of the concept behind it. And I've been quite amazed in its function. This obviously, someone looking at it's a bit experienced. I haven't been managing it at all. And so it's actually gone into a little bit of production in the tree lines, which is not what it was about. It was more about between the tree lines. but we haven't had the people resources to actually do anything in here for a while. And so it's just sort of just hanging in here. It won't take much to get it up and going. Plenty of times I think about it, but the one thing I noticed with it, so this was a grassy cow paddock, and then within 3 months, we turned it into this sort of syntropic setup.
Wow.
In the veggie garden at that time, we'd been doing 13 years of bringing in all that compost and all that sort of stuff. There's two things I had trouble growing in there, still do, is capsicums. We get a couple of capsicums in the plant, and then that's it. They go rotten and whatever. So in the season, you know that life of that, because they last quite a while. It's a capsicum plant, but we just didn't get any productivity. You could get a random one here and there. So it wasn't ideal doing capsicums. And the other one was eggplants. Couldn't do eggplants. They just, you get a bit and then the whole plant just goes, I don't like this space at all. So there's a fertility issue, mineral imbalance, something or other that just doesn't suit those guys. And then so this was a grass paddock, smashed it to bits. You know, this has got a lot of stone in here. I de-stoned it, dug it all up, re-leveled it because it was a little bit not level and stuff like that, just to make it more manageable. Whacked this system in, tree lines and stuff. The tree lines were quite young then, of course, because they were in their first establishment. And within 3 months, we were selling, amongst everything else, because we were selling boxes of greens and stuff like that, we were selling eggplants and capsicums.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just like, what's going on here? And avocados is the other one. So I struggle to grow avocados because of the phytophthora issue that happens on it. So I wasted too much money on trying to grow avocados. I'd love to grow avocados. And then whacked avocados in here. They're only by seed, and then...
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, they're I've had to knock the top off this because it's just going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't see anything wrong with that.
And do you think the capsicums and eggplants grow well in here because it mimics a natural system with?
It's the diversity. There's well, obviously there's also your stratification. So the stratification is an amazing concept, which I wish I'd knew more about when I did do the food forest, because I didn't get that stratification component of that at all because I didn't understand it.
What does that mean?
Stratification is about the light needs of each individual species. And so you every time you set up that consortium, you are choosing the ones to get the light needs, and this is way out of balance now because it just hasn't been managed for 2 years. So in that, even in your growing your veggies in here, there's a whole design and structure into the light needs of every individual vegetable plants that you're putting in here, your salads, your radishes, and everything like that. So that is critical. But it's the diversity, and diversity is the key thing. Of how many times do I mention diversity, in this short, brief interview that we've been doing? So the diversity is the key. So actually, my wife went pretty crazy on it. So in 1 metre wide across this space here, so this has got 4 beds, and she had 35, I think it was, different species in that 1 metre. So that was replicated as you went down that metre. There was that diversity, and you get results, and I think it's just incredible. I'm really, really pleased that I did this. Obviously I'm not hands-on, and it's not doing, and I haven't actually had any fruits yet because these are by seed, there's not grafted. And but I'm getting coffee and get the odd banana, and in this system I'm not meant to be harvesting bananas. The banana's about bringing in the biomass, and but yeah. And it won't take much to get it going. I just come in and sort this lot out here. I will bring in compost because I've got so much compost.
Yep.
And then plant this up, do a reset on there, putting in all that organic matter back into here, your accumulated organic matter, and got your biodiversity.
Yep.
And then biomass, and away you go. And it'll get happening.
And do you find when you plant in the middle here, do you get much less pests than planting out there in the open?
Actually, it's interesting. I think there is less pests, yes. We never had. But mind you, we don't get that many pests. I did say before in March, April, we always get, things get chewed up a lot in this climate. So it's that change of season. And we're just aware of that, so we don't plant. I can't remember what actually happened here around that period of time. I think we always wait until that's gone, that period of time. It's the end of your summer. And so then, and in summer we don't actually do many greens because it's too hot. where you could let this stay up for that period of time, get that shade. But if you were gardening in here, you'd have to really thin that down,
Right.
to get the sunlight in. Yeah.
But much less pests in a syntropic system than a traditional open
I would,
garden.
yeah, for sure. I can't definitely clarify that. I haven't really experienced that. We don't get that many pests in our veggie garden now anyhow,
Right.
just because of I think with all the compost that we've made over the years, and there is quite a bit of diversity there as well. People say, well, how come you don't have this problem, that problem? We did in the first couple of years. You know, we had slug problems and we had a little bit of snail problem, and mainly it was slugs. And then your cabbage moths would come in, but they're pretty rare now.
Yep.
So, yeah.
The system looks after itself.
If you allow nature to balance itself out, and you know, how can we do that? Because that's a bit of a challenge in itself, because we always want to get a bit involved, and we probably shouldn't, and taking out certain things, and we probably shouldn't, because we don't understand what they're doing in the system. So we're up in checking out the cows, and so we're doing a holistic management variation of strategy here. So these get moved every day. So yesterday they were there, and then today they're in this one, and you can just sort of see the green line. It's not very good time. They're actually come back a little bit early. I was away for a period of time. When I go away, the volunteers, I've got to make it simple for the volunteers. So the rotation, paddock rotation, got out of whack, and so they come back a little bit too early for here. But I'll give them a little bit more space. And this is the time of year where you take down the bulk. So in the flush, your bulk comes up, and then in your drier, non-flush period of time and cold winter shorter days, you can take the bulk down. And so they're pushing into the bulk a little bit now, so they're going a little bit hungry. But the pastures are improving and improving, and which is great considering the majority of the cow manure I'm putting into the biodigester in the garden. So they're going okay. This will be my next milker. She's only a young one. So she's a Jersey father. I'm just trying to think of the breed of this one. It's on the tip of my tongue.
So how much milk do you get from these guys a day?
So I'm only milking Choco at the moment, and she's giving me about 6 litres of milk. Not a high production, but it's adequate for what I want. It gives me a kilo of butter a week plus.
Oh wow!
And that's what I'm mainly chasing, and with our cream. What can you smell? This one here, this is a beef father, so this one will, just watch that fence. Yeah. So this one will end up on the plate one day. She's a pretty girl. And then the other one over there, she's due to drop next month. The milker at the back, I'm not milking her at the moment. Yeah. So she'll be next month. She should have a calf, and away the cycle goes again.
Right. And so the holistic management, what's the definition of that?
So it comes back to what I was saying about you've got to allow the root system to re-establish. So this one got grazed yesterday. So it's going to be about 50 days before they come. I haven't added up for a while. It'll be about 55 maybe days, maybe 60. I don't think it's 60 days anymore because I've lost a bit of land to other infrastructure. So it'll be able to re-establish. So what'll happen now is it's going to grow to put, because it's got to photosynthesize. It can't function without photosynthesis. So it needs green leaves. So how's it going to get the green leaves? Some photosynthesis, but it will drop off some of the root matter. Some of the roots will die to put energy to grow the green, to make photosynthesis happen, so then it can grow more roots. And so this is going to have 50 days to re-establish those root systems and grow more. And in that dropping off the roots and renew, that's when you're putting carbon into the soil. And so you're building your soil carbon content, the higher carbon content, the more the water holding capacity, and the more ecosystem for the organisms, the biology. So you're continually building the ecosystem for the biology. And how are we doing it? By allowing these guys, so they're a biological resource, timing and management. If you don't get the timing management right, they'll deplete the soil because they'll eat all the yummy stuff. So instead of having a paddock, we have cells in the paddock. This is paddock 7, and I'm going to get, I think it's the 13 days I get out of paddock 7 on average. And so it's It's a managed system, timing and management, and they improve their food source. They would love to get out of this fence, and this one does, and pretends she hasn't been. She gets back in again.
Yeah.
But because I'm managing them, we'll get better. You know, if I just let them go for it, well, this will just deplete. And you see that as soon as you see someone set stocking. The neighbour was set stock for the last probably 15, 20 years, and it just depleted, and he's wondering why all these weeds are coming up. Got a new neighbour in now, he's putting in, redoing fences and stuff like that, so it's going to be quite interesting to see the change.
Right.
Just getting back into that management. He got old, the previous guy just got a bit older, a bit lazier, had an off-farm job because he wasn't making enough money out of his cows, and yeah, and it just depletes because he wasn't managing his biological resource.
Yeah. So what's your advice to someone that wants to get into what you've got going on here? You know, they might have just purchased some land or looking at purchasing land. What would you say to them?
Okay, so if you need to make money from the land, you're going to have to go up in economies of scale. Remember, I was saying that was a problem.
Right.
So be realistic. You know, so 100 acres, yeah. You could make a living. The neighbour here is 100 acres, but he'll never pay back his property because he just spent a lot of money buying that. He won't make it from cows. He's obviously got other investments elsewhere.
Right.
Or he's come in and he's basically going to retire on the property. You know, he's got enough money to set it up, and then he's got other investments or something like that, and he can retire on the property. But if you got to pay your mortgage, you know, 100 acres, you're going to have to work it hard, and you don't want to be spending a couple of $1 million because you're not going to make it on 40 cows or whatever, 30 cows. So, okay, so you bring up your economies of scale. We want diversity, but you need to be realistic, because if you're running around like I am, managing everything, you can't make enough money out of some product. I don't have time to process and things like that. You know, I was mucking around with a bit of coffee yesterday. It took me an hour just to shell out my coffee. You know, that's not realistic. You know, they're already that 1 hour is that's you know, what's that got to be, $40?
Yeah.
I should ask for a kilo of coffee, or a bit more than a kilo maybe. It's I'm doing it for fun, and it's my product, and I can, you know, just as I'm winding down for the day, I'll process the coffee. But yeah, so obviously your markets, you know, so not real good here for markets. If you've got a roadside stall, I'm on a secluded small road, no through traffic, so then I don't have a market, you know, like a sort of roadside stall. If you had a roadside stall opportunity, yes, you can be a bit more diverse, just take your stuff down there. Or you set up a value add, and so then you need, you know, you're processing it, so you need a kitchen, you know, all that criteria that you need to do that, and then brand and packaging, and still need market. So it's quite complex to do. I think if you're getting into the more natural, less machinery, you need people.
Right.
So how do you set up people systems? And people are the worst species on the planet for management. You know, the biological resource, they're terrible.
Yep.
You know, they're really hard to manage.
Yep.
They have opinions, you know. Cows got limited opinion.
Yep. Nice, simple creatures.
Yeah.
So you would say to someone that wants to have a farm that is economically stable, you would say find an area that has good, you know, it's got a good market near it, so you can sell easily. And you would also say, I don't mind blank, forgot the first bit.
So you do need, if I'm growing veggies and stuff like that, I picked a real bad property.
Yep.
It's really depleted in fertility. Yeah, really depleted. So you want a river flatten, well, they're going to be expensive.
Right.
Because they grow stuff really easy. You know, so you need to get into something with river flats where all your beautiful nutrient from the hills is down in the flats, and that's why it grows more. And it's usually in a valley, so naturally all your nutrients coming into the valley.
Yep.
and accumulating there, and then your moisture's coming into there. So that works better. Get your sun aspect right, that's going to work for you. You know, do your study on that. You have an idea of some product that you want to run, but have you ever ran it before? Have you got experience in that? You might not even like it, you know. There's a guy when I was growing up, and he had to leave his farm for a couple of months because he was allergic to the grass when it was flowering. So,
that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem, you know, when you're supposed to be, your grass is growing, you're supposed to be in there managing or doing your hay or whatever, and he had to leave because he was allergic to the grass. You know, you've got to be sensible about that. So do your research. Definitely, I didn't do my research.
Yeah.
I just allowed things to happen.
Just got into it and learned from your mistakes.
But I've really enjoyed permaculture because for me it's natural. It's real. It's just common sense design. It just makes sense, and you know I enjoy watching it happen. I don't enjoy seeing things getting away on me. But,
Of course, yep.
But overall, nature's happy. You know, this is meant to be a vine jungle, 100-odd foot high, if not higher. And of course, nature's going to go crazy here.
Yeah.
Of course it is. And here we are want to grow grass. Nature says, no, I've got to grow this big timber forest meant to be growing here, rainforest. So we need to be aware of that and then try and work with it as much as we can.
So do you think permaculture farming is something that everyone should adopt? Like everyone that wants to get into consciously farming better?
Consciously farming better. Well, society is running on fossil fuel, and that's got an end game. There's an end to that, and you can argue as much as you like about when that's going to be, but it's not far away. And how are you going to? You got 500 acres. How are you going to run 500 acres without fossil fuel? You're not going to walk over 500 acres every day. You just won't. So what was the energy before fossil fuels? Well, it was slave labour. And so they just converted slave labour converted from slave labour into using fossil fuel. So come back to community. Come back to your villages and everyone working together and be a community. Community is an interesting word, and work together. So you have to have a similar mindset. So you need to find people on the same wavelength with that, because we all know life's getting harder and harder, and things are getting more and more expensive. And in my lifetime, one person with a job in the family was enough to raise that family, feed that family, clothe that family, have a car, and build your house and shed and all that sort of things. Well, nowadays, that two people with two income family is still not enough.
Yeah.
And you got less and less time. So things will change, and so then you think, well, how do I want to function in that state? And for this, I want to stay here for the rest of my life, but I won't be able to do it on my own. And so I'm getting to the point of introducing other people that need to be like-minded, and I want to get hands dirty. If you're not going to get your hands dirty, I'm not interested.
Yep.
Because I'm not going to carry you.
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm going to get the age where I need to be carried.
Yep.
And so that's your succession. And interestingly, our culture, usually the next generation's not interested, which is a bit. Let's change that. We need to get back to where the children took on from the fathers. That's been lost. Too many options because of fossil fuels. There's so many options. Oh, we'll just go and do this, and we'll go and do that, and make money out of nothing, and all for what purpose in the end? So that's the thing. Anyhow,
cool. That's very, very inspiring. Thanks for having us, Tom.
I got work to do. I better go and do it.
Lots to do around here.
Instead of standing around talking all day.